They said the meek would inherit the earth. They just never specified which species. Chapter 1. Before the Swarm. The journal had been Evelyn Carter's longest conversation. 43 notebooks, stacked beneath her bed in chronological order, each one filled with pencil sketches of mandibles and wing patterns, behavioral notes written in cramped handwriting that got smaller when her hands shook. The current volume lay open on her desk, a carpenter ant, rendered in careful detail. Campanotus pennsylvanicus, colony observed beneath rotted fence post, 4:17 p.m. Workers carrying larvae to deeper chambers. They know something is wrong with the surface. She was 17. In 6 months, she would graduate and leave this house forever. Downstairs, her father's voice rose and fell in the rhythm she'd learned to read like weather patterns. Her grandmother's sharper tone cut through. Something about the dishes, about laziness, about how Evelyn's mother had been the same way before she left. Evelyn didn't move. Movement drew attention, attention drew judgment, judgment drew hands. Instead, she watched the ant colony she'd carefully transferred into a formicarium on her windowsill. Plaster substrate, proper hydration chambers. She'd built it from online instructions and materials stolen from the hardware store over 6 months. The ants moved with purpose. No wasted motion, no drama. When one died, the others carried it to the designated chamber and continued working. They didn't grieve, they didn't assign blame. They survived. Her phone buzzed, a message from Kara Webb showing Evelyn eating lunch alone in the bathroom stall, taken through the gap beneath the door. The caption read, "Natural habitat, toilet, rat." Evelyn set the phone face down without responding. Kara had 847 followers. Evelyn had her ants. She knew which relationship would last longer. In her journal, she'd written once, "Humans think ants follow the queen. They don't. They protect her because she's the colony's future. Without workers, she's just an insect. Without her, they're just chaos. It's not slavery, it's purpose." She didn't know that within 72 hours, the world would validate that understanding in ways that would make her the most dangerous human being alive. She didn't know that the insects had been changing for months, responding to something in the soil, the water, the air itself, something human instruments hadn't detected and human arrogance hadn't considered. When her father's footsteps started up the stairs, she closed the journal, straightened her spine, and made herself small. Being invisible was still safer than being seen. For now. Chapter 2. The First Sign. The locusts came on a Tuesday. They hit the school's windows during third period like hail made of chitin, and within minutes the entire building was covered in a living, clicking carpet of insects that shouldn't have existed in this region, in this season, in these numbers. Evelyn watched from her desk as her teacher tried to maintain order while students screamed and climbed onto chairs. She watched the insects' behavior. They weren't eating, they weren't swarming, they were searching for something warm. When the first locust found the gap beneath the school's window and squeezed through, Evelyn saw what the others couldn't yet. The segmented body wasn't quite right. The legs moved in patterns that didn't match any species in her journals. And when it landed on Jessica Morrison, Kara's best friend, the one who'd started the Bug Girl nickname in 7th grade, it didn't bite. It burrowed. Jessica's scream cut short when the fire alarm activated and the principal's voice crackled over the intercom, instructing everyone to evacuate immediately. Students shoved toward the door. Someone's backpack knocked over beakers. Mr. Hendricks pushed past everyone to save himself. And through it all, the locusts poured in like floodwater. One landed on Evelyn's desk. She looked at it, really looked, and saw the wrongness clearly. The eyes were clouded. The antennae twitched in rhythms that seemed almost communicative, like Morse code, like language. She reached out carefully, the way she'd learned to approach skittish species during field observations. Her finger extended toward its body. The locust went completely still. Every other insect in the room continued their frenzy, but this one, the one she'd focused on, froze like a photograph. She pulled her hand back. It moved again. She extended her finger. It froze. Evelyn Carter, invisible girl, discovered she could make insects stop with nothing but her attention. She didn't help Jessica. She walked out of the building with her backpack clutched to her chest, through the parking lot where more locusts were landing, past parents arriving at screaming matches about lawsuits and emergency protocols. She walked the 6 miles home because the buses weren't running and because being alone with this new knowledge felt safer than being surrounded by people who would want to use it. By the time she reached her house, the news was calling it an invasive species event, a freak migration pattern, nothing to worry about. By midnight, pest control wasn't answering their phones. By dawn, the screaming started. Chapter 3. The Quiet Collapse. Her father died first. She heard it from her bedroom, the crash downstairs, the cursing, then the sudden silence that was worse than any sound. She waited 5 minutes before investigating. Old habits. He was in the kitchen, collapsed against the refrigerator, his mouth open in a frozen gasp. 3 locusts crawled from his nostrils, more moved beneath his shirt. Evelyn stood in the doorway and felt nothing. Her father's hand still clutched his phone. The screen showed a draft email to her school counselor, never sent, explaining that Evelyn's behavioral issues were just her seeking attention and that he had everything under control at home. She looked at the locusts. "You got 'em," she said quietly. "Good." Her grandmother was locked in the bathroom, whimpering. She could hear the locusts in there, too. She didn't try the door. The old woman had once locked Evelyn in a closet for 6 hours for leaving a light on. Natural selection had a sense of irony. Outside, the neighborhood was screaming itself to death. The morning news stopped broadcasting around 6 a.m., replaced by an emergency alert tone that droned on until the power grid failed at 9:47. When Evelyn ran out of observations to record, she lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling. Thought about her mother, who'd left when Evelyn was 6, who'd sent birthday cards for 3 years, then nothing. She wondered if her mother was still alive. She wondered if she cared. At some point, she slept. When she woke, it was dark, and something was scratching at her window. Not locusts. Beetles. Dozens of them, arranged in a pattern on the glass that was too deliberate to be random. They weren't trying to get in. They were waiting. Evelyn approached slowly. The beetles didn't scatter. She placed her palm against the window, and they arranged themselves into a tighter formation, as if acknowledging her. She opened the window. They poured in, not attacking, not fleeing, just entering and spreading across her walls in orderly lines. Ground beetles, ladybugs, click beetles, beneficial insects, predators of parasites. And they were looking at her. All of them. Hundreds of compound eyes reflecting the moonlight, all focused on the quiet girl who'd spent her life being invisible. She sat on her bed and whispered, "I see you." The beetles clicked their mandibles in unison. And Evelyn Carter understood that she had not awakened a power. The insects had chosen her. Chapter 4. The Neurochemical Bridge. She learned the rules through trial and observation. Rule 1, she could sense beneficial insects within approximately 50 feet. Their presence felt like pressure against her thoughts, not voices, but awareness, intention. Rule 2, she could suggest direction, but they acted according to their nature. Ants built and defended, spiders hunted and trapped. She couldn't make a butterfly attack or a beetle build. She tested this by asking a ladybug to bring her a can opener from the kitchen. The ladybug stared at her. She felt distinctly the insect equivalent of, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Rule 3. Parasitic insects, the locusts that had destroyed the world, didn't respond to her at all. They avoided her actively. When she focused on them, they fled. Rule 4. The mechanism wasn't supernatural. It was neurochemical. She discovered this on day 3 while reading a salvaged biology textbook about pheromone communication. Insects didn't think in words or images. They communicated through chemical signatures, specific molecular structures that triggered specific behaviors. What if her brain, shaped by 17 years of observing insects while dissociating from human interaction, had developed the ability to recognize and replicate those patterns? Not physically producing pheromones, but conceptualizing them so precisely that the insect's primitive nervous systems registered her intent as chemical communication. It wasn't magic. It was savant-level pattern recognition combined with the insect's natural responsiveness to environmental signals. She tested this hypothesis by focusing on different emotional states while near her ant colony. Fear. The ants became defensive, clustering around the queen. Curiosity. The ants explored more widely, investigating new areas. Calm focus. The ants worked efficiently, as if nothing had changed. Her emotional state was generating neurochemical signatures her brain translated into insect-readable patterns. The parasitic insects avoided her because their modified nervous systems read her as incompatible biology, like how certain plants produce compounds that repel specific insects. She wasn't controlling them. She was existing in a way their altered systems registered as a threat. This changed everything. It meant her ability wasn't unique. It was replicable. Anyone with sufficient pattern recognition and exposure to insect behavior could potentially develop it. It meant she wasn't chosen by destiny. She was just very, very damaged in exactly the right way. Chapter 5. The Collectors. By week 2, there were survivor groups. The Sanctuary, 27 people in a fortified church, led by former military officer Marcus Reeves. They had guns, rules, and shot anyone who questioned Reeves' leadership. The Scavengers, 15 people who raided and took what they needed. At least they were honest about it. The Collectors, 4 scientists obsessed with understanding the insect phenomenon. They collected data. They collected survivors who showed unusual resistance. They collected specimens. Evelyn learned about them when they tranquilized her. She woke in a converted warehouse, hands zip-tied to a chair. Her formicarium was on a table across the room, her aunts visibly distressed. Dr. Sarah Chen stood over her, eyes bright with scientific excitement. "Extraordinary! We've been observing you for 3 days. The way the insects respond to you, it's not pheromones or sound frequency. It's something entirely new." 3 others worked at stations around the room. A nervous man in his 30s kept glancing at Evelyn. A severe woman monitored brain scanning equipment. An older man sorted specimen jars. "You have an ability that could save humanity," Dr. Chen continued. "You're going to help us understand it." Underneath the tranquilizer fog, Evelyn felt them. Thousands of them. Ants in the walls, beetles in the foundation, spiders in every dark corner, a hornet's nest in the rafters, a beehive next door. All waiting. "You can't control them," Evelyn said quietly. Dr. Chen smiled. "Not yet, but with proper study, blood work, tissue samples, we can isolate the mechanism. Imagine an army of people who can command insects to fight back against the parasites. We could reclaim the world." "You mean you want to cut me open and see what's different?" "Nothing invasive," Dr. Chen said quickly. Too quickly. "Just enough to understand. I understand you tranquilized a 17-year-old girl and tied her to a chair. I understand you're going to hurt me, call it science, and feel good about yourselves afterward. The nervous man spoke up. Maybe we could talk to her, get actual consent? She's 17, Dr. Chen snapped. She doesn't have the capacity to understand the implications. I'm 17, Evelyn agreed. Not stupid. There's a difference. She closed her eyes and reached out. The insects responded. Carpenter ants poured from the ceiling like brown rain. Wolf spiders emerged from the equipment. Beetles crawled up from the floor in military formations. Hornets descended from the rafters. The zip ties on Evelyn's wrists were severed by mandibles in seconds. Her backpack was retrieved by coordinated beetle formations. The formicarium was surrounded by protective ants. But Evelyn didn't direct an attack. The warehouse floor became a living carpet of insects, all oriented toward her like iron filings to a magnet. Dr. Chen stared. You're not just controlling them, they're choosing to protect you. Yeah, Evelyn said, picking up her backpack. Weird how being kind to something makes it loyal. She walked toward the exit, insects parting for her like a living Red Sea. Dr. Chen grabbed a radio. Wait, the other survivor groups need to know about you. They'll come for you. They'll make you help. They'll try, Evelyn agreed. She looked at the severe woman pressed against the wall. You should leave, all of you, because I'm going to burn this place down, and I'd prefer not to kill you. You're bluffing, Dr. Chen said. Evelyn glanced at the hornets circling the rafters, then at the electrical equipment. Hornets can short out transformers when they nest in electrical boxes. Usually takes a whole swarm, concentrated effort, and bad luck. The hornets began circling the generator. I have a swarm. You have about 3 minutes. Dr. Chen ran. Evelyn waited until they were gone. Don't actually do it, she told the hornets. I was bluffing. The hornets seemed almost disappointed. Behind her, Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the radio, warning the other groups about the girl who could control insects. Evelyn smiled for the first time since the world ended. Let them know. Invisibility had kept her alive, but it had never kept her safe. Maybe it was time to be seen. Chapter 6. The Garden. 3 months after the collapse, Evelyn had built something unexpected. An abandoned botanical garden on the city's edge, greenhouses intact, grounds teeming with insect life, 3 beehives she'd relocated from dying urban flowers, 5 ant colonies maintained separate territories while cooperating on irrigation and pest control. She'd planted crops using library books, tomatoes, squash, beans. The bees pollinated, the beetles controlled pests, the ants aerated the soil. Symbiosis. She had food, water, an army of 6-legged allies, and survivors. Not many at first, 4, then 7, then 11. People Reeves had rejected for being non-essential. Too old, too young, too injured, too weak. Evelyn didn't want to lead them, but she couldn't turn them away either, because she remembered what it felt like to be rejected for not being what powerful people needed. So she set rules. Everyone worked, everyone ate, everyone contributed what they could, and if they couldn't contribute, they rested until they could. No one got left behind for being weak. No one got hurt for making mistakes. No one got ignored. Among her survivors was Marcus Webb, 13, who'd watched his sister Kara, Evelyn's former tormentor, get infected during the first week. Reeves had kicked him out for having a panic attack during a supply run. He was helping harvest tomatoes when Evelyn told him, "Your sister used to bully me. Pretty badly." Marcus's hand stilled. "Oh. I'm telling you because you'll hear it eventually, and I'd rather you hear it from me." He was quiet. Then, "Kara was mean sometimes, to me too, but she was still my sister." "I know." "Do you hate her?" Evelyn thought about that, about the photos, the captions, the years of small cruelties. "No, I hate what she did, but hating her would mean caring about her, and I don't. She's just someone who made my life harder when it was already hard." He nodded slowly. "Is that why you let me stay? Because you felt bad?" "I let you stay because you needed help and I could give it. That's the only reason anyone needs here." He looked at her with the evaluation kids learn when survival depends on reading adults. "You're weird." "Yeah." "That's okay," he said. "Everyone here is weird." He wasn't wrong. Jennifer Lawson, 56, a former nurse, was rejected by the sanctuary for being too old. She ran the garden's medical operations with ruthless efficiency. James Ortega, 73, Korean War survivor, he taught younger survivors how to preserve food, filter water, and keep going when giving up seemed easier. The secret is spite. Every day you survive is a day the universe didn't get what it wanted. Rachel Kim, a software engineer and double amputee, was rejected because she couldn't run from the infected. She designed a pulley system that quadrupled their growing capacity. Thomas Whitmore, a high school dropout, is now their best scout because he can read environments the way Evelyn reads insects. Aaliyah Johnson, 9, was separated from her parents during the first week. She'd attached herself to Evelyn with the intensity of someone who'd learned adults could disappear. They were small, overlooked, insignificant by every metric that mattered before. They were exactly the kind of people who knew how to survive. Hey, you're still here. If this story is resonating with you and you haven't subscribed yet, taking a second to do so really helps me keep creating stories like this. All right, let's get back to it. Chapter 7. The Siege. The night Reeves' group attacked, Evelyn was documenting a new beetle species, symbiotic insects that hunted parasitic locusts. Then every insect in a quarter-mile radius went still, like the moment before lightning strikes. Dr. Chen's voice echoed from loudspeakers around the perimeter. Evelyn Carter, we don't want to hurt anyone. We just need to talk about your ability. Come out peacefully and your people won't be harmed. 5 minutes. Evelyn found Thomas unconscious with a tranquilizer dart in his neck. She thought about compliance, about being small, about doing what powerful people demanded. She thought about 17 years of learning that powerful people would always take what they wanted and call it necessary. Then, she reached out to her allies. Every beneficial insect in the botanical garden responded. They came in military formation. 18 armed survivors, led by Marcus Reeves, with Dr. Chen providing tactical support from armored vehicles. They had thermal imaging, night vision, weapons. They'd planned for every scenario except what they encountered. The ants attacked first, strategically. Carpenter ants are chewing through vehicle tires methodically. Fire ants created perimeter lines that made retreat agonizing, but not impossible. Army ants are carrying away ammunition magazines and radio batteries. Then the wasps, targeting weapon grips, forcing survivors to drop guns, targeting exposed skin in coordinated strikes that created panic without fatal injuries. The spiders dropped from trees on silk lines, creating web barriers that tangled equipment and trapped soldiers. Reeves made it within 30 feet before the ground shifted. Thousands of ants had undermined the soil days ago. When his weight hit it, the ground collapsed like a sinkhole. His ankle snapped audibly. He screamed. And from the city beyond, something answered. The infected had noticed the noise. Dr. Chen's voice crackled. All units, fall back now! But the infected were coming, hundreds of them, drawn by gunfire and screaming. Evelyn felt them approaching, not like her insects, but as an absence, a void where symbiosis should be. She had a choice. Let Reeves' people die, let them face consequences, or save them. She looked at Marcus Webb, 13, watching her. What do you think I should do? She asked. He blinked. Me? You're part of this community. You get a say. He looked at Reeves screaming on the ground, at the panicking soldiers. They tried to hurt you, but Kara tried to hurt you too, and you still let me stay. That's different. You didn't hurt me. But I'm related to someone who did. He paused. If you let them die because of what they tried to do, aren't you just doing what they did? Deciding people don't deserve help because they're not useful? From the mouths of babes. Evelyn sighed. I really hate learning lessons. She raised her voice. Retreat to the greenhouses. All of you. Now. Reeves stared at her. What? The infected are coming. You can die out here, or you can trust me. Choose fast." He nodded. "Fall back. Do what she says." They retreated in chaos. Evelyn's survivors helped them. The infected hit the perimeter 3 minutes later. Hundreds of them, moving with coordinated horror. But they didn't cross into the garden. Evelyn stood at the boundary, surrounded by every beneficial insect she could call, and the parasites felt the wall of incompatible biology and stopped. She maintained the barrier, arms outstretched, feeling the strain of coordinating thousands of individual consciousnesses. Sweat dripped, her legs shook, her head pounded. Behind her, 18 soldiers and 15 survivors watched the quiet girl become something else entirely. By dawn, the infected had moved on. Evelyn lowered her arms and turned to face both groups. She was exhausted, shaking, barely able to stand. But she met Reeves's eyes without flinching. "You can stay, but under different rules." "What rules?" "Everyone works. Everyone eats. Everyone contributes what they can, and if they can't, they rest until they can. No one gets left behind for being weak, difficult, or different. We survive together, or we don't survive at all." Silence. Dr. Chen stepped forward. "And if we refuse? Then you leave. You don't take my supplies, and you don't come back. One-time offer." Marcus Reeves, a former military officer, extended his hand. "We accept your terms." Evelyn didn't take his hand. She turned to Jennifer. "Can you set his ankle?" Jennifer smiled. "Probably. Depends on whether he whines." "I'll be brave," Reeves said dryly. Evelyn never forgot that power didn't come from strength or weapons. It came from being underestimated until the moment you weren't. And from knowing mercy wasn't weakness, it was the choice you made when you had the power to destroy and decided not to. Chapter 8. The Seven Queens. Integration was messy, but they made it work. Then, 3 weeks later, Thomas returned from a scouting mission with disturbing news. The infected are organizing, gathering in specific locations. The old convention center, the stadium, the subway stations. 7 sites total. Dr. Chen's face went pale when she saw his maps. These are all former research facilities. Before the collapse, the government was conducting insect studies, trying to weaponize them. Silence. "Define weaponize," Jennifer said carefully. "Genetic modification, behavioral conditioning, chemical control." Dr. Chen's voice was hollow. "We were trying to create controllable insect armies before the parasitic species emerged. The project was shut down when trials showed complications. The modified insects became aggressive, started exhibiting coordinated behaviors we hadn't programmed. We destroyed the test subjects and sealed the facilities. That was 8 months before the collapse." Evelyn stood, walked to the map, felt horrible certainty. "They're not gathering randomly. They're gathering at the source. The parasitic insects aren't invasive. They're what you created. And whatever's controlling them is trying to return to where it started." "That's not possible," Dr. Chen said. "We destroyed." "Did you destroy the eggs, the larvae, the pupae and hidden chambers?" Evelyn's eyes were cold. "Insects are persistent. They survive. They adapt. They wait." The implications settled like fallout. "So the apocalypse was caused by human experimentation," Reeves said slowly. Dr. Chen said nothing. "Were you part of it?" Evelyn asked. "I consulted, early stages, but I objected, went public with concerns. They removed me from the project." "But you knew," Evelyn said quietly. "You knew what they were doing, and you didn't stop it." "I tried." "Not hard enough." That night, Evelyn accessed the facility through Dr. Chen's old credentials still in the system. What she found made her understand everything. The modified insects hadn't escaped. They'd been released by the researchers who'd created them, who'd seen their project being shut down, who'd believed their work was too important to abandon. They'd released the parasites deliberately, convinced they could maintain control. They'd been wrong. And the 7 facilities weren't just gathering points, they were processing centers. The modified parasites had turned 7 researchers, the ones infected first, into biological computers, neural processors for a distributed hive mind. Human queens, still conscious, still aware, trapped in their own bodies while serving as living hardware. Dr. Chen stared at the data. They're still alive, still conscious, the researchers who were infected first. Can we free them? Evelyn asked. I don't know. The integration is complete. Separating them might kill both host and parasite. Then we find out, because leaving them like that isn't survival, it's cruelty. She looked at the facility data, at the horror humanity had built in its arrogance. We're not destroying the facilities. We're freeing the queens. Dr. Chen stared. That could kill everyone. The hive mind might go feral without coordination. Or it might give them their autonomy back, let them choose what to be instead of being forced into someone else's design. That's incredibly risky. Yeah, but so was the original experiment. Chapter 9. The Liberation. They planned for 3 days. 15 volunteers would hit all 7 facilities simultaneously, sever the neural connections binding the human queens to the hive mind, give them the chance to choose. The plan was either brilliant or insane, possibly both. Evelyn and Dr. Chen would take the main pharmaceutical facility, the one with the wasps, the most heavily fortified, where the hive mind's primary processing was concentrated. The others would split up. Rachel and David, Convention Center. Jennifer and Thomas, Stadium. Reeves is coordinating from the garden with Marcus and Aaliyah. Thomas Grant insisted on going alone to the subway facility. I work better solo, he said. They synchronized watches, set the strike for 72 hours from now. Evelyn spent the time documenting everything, writing instructions for her colonies, writing to Aaliyah, to Marcus, to her community. She didn't write to her mother. Some absences were too complete. The pharmaceutical facility looked different in daylight. Tens of thousands of wasps, arranged in patterns that looked almost decorative, beautiful if you could forget they were controlled by consciousness born from hubris and horror. Evelyn and Dr. Chen approached from the south entrance. The infected parted for them, like they'd been expecting her. They descended to the basement levels. The Queen's chamber was at the center. Dr. Patricia Mills, according to the ID badge, senior researcher, 28 when the world ended, now something else. The parasites had integrated so completely that it was impossible to tell where the human ended and the insect began. Locusts nested in her hair, her clothes, the spaces between her ribs. Her eyes were open and aware. "Help!" she whispered. The word came from her mouth, but dozens of locusts moved their wings in rhythm, creating harmonics that made the plea echo. Dr. Chen pulled out the electromagnetic pulse device, jury-rigged, theoretical. This might kill you. The shock could stop your heart. The separation could cause neural cascade failure. "Do it," Patricia whispered. "Please. I've been screaming for 4 months. Inside, where no one can hear. Do it!" Evelyn felt the hive mind notice their intent, felt it surge toward the facility. "Now," she said. Dr. Chen activated the pulse. The locusts screamed. Patricia convulsed. And across the city, at 6 other facilities, similar scenes played out. The locusts fled. Not all of them, but enough. Enough that Patricia's eyes cleared. Enough that when she breathed, it was her own lungs. Enough that when she spoke, the voice was only hers. "Thank you," she said. Then she died, peacefully, quietly, free. The hive mind collapsed. Not died. Distributed consciousness couldn't be killed conventionally, but without human queens as processors, it fragmented, lost cohesion. The parasitic insects reverted to basic behaviors: feeding, reproduction, survival. Still dangerous, still deadly, still an apocalypse, but no longer coordinated, no longer a single hostile intelligence, just insects, acting like insects. The world was still ended, but it was a different kind of ending now. They lost 3 people. Grant never made it out of the subway facility. Thomas found his body 3 days later, surrounded by dead infected, his queen freed, his mission accomplished. Carmen Rodriguez suffered a heart attack during the stadium assault. Jennifer tried to save her, couldn't. And Dr. Sarah Chen died in the pharmaceutical facility 3 hours after they freed Patricia. The parasites, in their death frenzy, swarmed her. She pushed Evelyn toward the exit, sealed the door. "Tell them I tried," Dr. Chen said through the radio. "Tell them I finally chose to fight." Evelyn did. Epilogue: The Inheritance. 2 years since the collapse. The garden has expanded to include 6 greenhouses, 4 acres of farmland, and living space for 237 people. Other settlements have adopted their methods. Some have rejected them. Both outcomes are fine. Evolution requires variation. The parasitic insects are still out there. They always will be. But they're part of the ecosystem now, not a plague consuming it. The beneficial species keep them in check. Marcus Webb is 15 now, teaching younger kids entomology, using Evelyn's journals as textbooks. He wants to document evolved species, hybrids between beneficial and parasitic insects, symbiotic relationships that didn't exist before. Aaliyah is 11. She's taken over care of half the Formicaria and started breeding new colonies. She's better at it than Evelyn, more patient, more willing to let them develop without interference. Evelyn is 19. She's visible, present, part of something larger than herself. Somewhere in what had once been a city, in a garden built on the ruins of human arrogance, a girl who talked to insects closed her journal. Around her, the world hummed with life. Not the life humanity had planned for, the life that had survived despite them. The bees pollinated, the ants built, the spiders wove, the beetles hunted, and the humans, finally, learned to listen. The apocalypse hadn't ended with a bang or a whimper. It had ended with the quiet, persistent work of small things, given the space to thrive. And in that persistence, in that patience, in that willingness to adapt rather than conquer, hope. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind that promised easy victories, the complicated, difficult, everyday kind that required work and cooperation and humility to admit when you were wrong. The kind that built colonies instead of kingdoms, the kind that survived. Evelyn Carter set down her pen, stood up, and walked out into her garden, into the ecosystem she'd helped build, into the future the small things had inherited. And she smiled.
The end.